I'm Brian Bender, and let's queer up politics. Democrats face test on trans rights messaging ahead of the midterms. According to the new Axios reporting, Democrats are still struggling to respond to Republican attacks on transgendered rights. The party needs to establish its messaging as it looks toward the 26 midterms and the 28 presidential race. Axios sent 3 trans-related questions to 11 potential 2028 Democratic candidates. Only 3 campaigns responded: Pete Buttigieg, Rahm Emanuel, and Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Others included Kamala Harris and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but they did not reply. Buttigieg previously said trans issues should be handled with compassion for transgendered people and empathy for people who are not sure what all of it means for them, adding that sports decisions should not be made by politicians. Polling shows Americans are divided, though. Many support bans on trans athletes in women's sports, but also support anti-discrimination protections. Advocacy groups say clear messaging matters. Anti-trans politics dominated the 24 election cycle when Donald Trump spent hundreds of millions of dollars on ads declaring Kamala Harris is for they, them. President Trump, he's for you. The Harris-Walz campaign largely avoided the issue, a strategy that may have left Democrats unprepared. With Republicans still pushing anti-trans legislation, the 26 midterms may determine whether Democrats are finally able to meet the moment. Well, I just want to say that this is quite incredible. They have a messaging problem and a courage problem if you're not going to speak up for your constituency. I don't really know many transgendered people or gender nonconforming people who are voting for Republicans, so I would hope that anybody that's running under the Democratic ticket would have something to say to their constituents.
Go ahead. I appreciate them sending out this survey.
Sure.
But the answer is, don't talk. I support my trans brothers and sisters. They are neglected. They are so important. They are the people we need to pay attention to, but we don't need to give sound bites on. We have other issues that reach in, we have our citizens being shot in the streets. Ugh. We have children being held as bait for their possibly non-documented parent to come out and be arrested. We've got an economy that is teetering on being adequate. All of these things, we win on these issues, and our trans brothers and sisters also win. They come along. There are something like 45 high school athletes that are trans trying to compete. They are important. But at the end of the day, we let the Republicans out message us when the point is we should have stayed on message, which was other messaging. God, that sounded weird coming out of my head.
No, it was, I understand what you're saying. It's just, distractions to what's actually going on, right, in the real world. However, to speak to this article and this, I applaud Pete Buttigieg for speaking on what felt like facts. I applaud him saying that the decision for trans athletes in sports should not be made up by the government. I have said this at this table before and gotten heat for it, that I think that it's a case-by-case situation every time, but I don't think that you have any right to deny anyone anything. But I do think that it's not up to the politicians. It would be up to whoever is the expert in that I don't even know what sports are. So in that sport and field and goal, whatever that is there, I would think that that is who I would trust with my child who is maybe going through a breakthrough in their orientation and or gender fluidity. I would trust the person that they feel safest with, and that feels like the coach as opposed to some random person in the government making the decision for them. But this is murky water. This is a tough topic, and we have to do better about talking about it here. The government has to do better about shifting the narrative to just be about trans people, because like you said, there are so many other things going on in the world that will uplift everyone once they get solved.
You know, I think the Democrats have to make a decision whether or not trans people are a liability or if they're a community worth fighting for. And I do understand what you're saying, John. Stop talking about it. All water lifts all boats. What is that expression? Rising tides lift all boats. So I understand what you're saying about that, but I also think that it's very important that we message to the people that we want to come out and vote for our candidates. And I think it's important that we normalize people that have different expressions and different ways of living their lives and showing that they're not scary, they're not predators, they're not predatory. And, I see it both ways, but I also think that we need to come to a reckoning as to whether or not these people are a liability for the Democratic Party or if they're worthy of our full-throated, I wouldn't say endorsement, or our full-throated support when it comes to their human rights. Mm-hmm. So
we need a really strong Democrat candidate. We need a really strong team of Democrats going into the next election really, really, really poorly. But I have a feeling that this will not be the last time we hear about this. So
no.
There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.